Right, welcome everybody back for another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. We've got a special guest today is Sinem Yildirim, who is I'm not going to describe you, Sinem. I think that you can come on and just tell us a little bit about what's happened recently, because I know a lot of people will connect with your most recent journey, and then we'll get into what you do and what you're moving towards next. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. Where do I begin? I would like to start by saying I'm a little bit of everything. Well, first and foremost, I'm a mother. I've got two young kids. And I'm currently now working as a holistic life coach. Prior to that, I was a teacher. I taught in adult education for just over 13 years before I left, but I'd been playing around with coaching before I'd left. And then one day made the decision to take the leap, to leave teaching behind and to go in this, to go all in basically, because trying to do both at the same time, it wasn't working. And I knew that this was something that I wanted to develop and grow. And when the time felt right, that was when I made my decision.
So tell us a little bit about the journey towards coaching, like what piqued your interest
Yeah.
in the first instance, and then led you to sort of creating this as a business for yourself, as almost like a passion and your reason why you wanted to move away and support in the way that you do.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I want to mention that I didn't even know what coaching
Mm,
was. But when I discovered it, I realized that I was pretty much teaching and coaching all along from day one.
yeah.
So teaching adults, teaching English as a foreign language to adults who'd migrated from, their countries, who were very well, equipped, capable, qualified in whatever they did back home, but not able to do that in this country because they didn't have the English skills, made me naturally not just teach them language, but give them the motivation, the empowerment, the inspiration to show
Mm,
them that whatever it is that they want to achieve in this country, which is essentially develop their language, find a better job, earn more money, that it was possible.
mm,
So, but how I found out about it was when I was doing one of my teaching diplomas, my course tutor. We had a tutorial one day, and at that time, I was also the curriculum manager for my department. And we were nearing the end of the course, and she basically asked, "This is almost done. What's next? What do you want to do? Do you want to stay in management?" And at that point, I'd been doing it for about a year. I was really good at it. Everybody wanted me to stay. In fact, they wanted me to start to manage two campuses, but it just didn't feel right. And I did say I don't really want to stay in management.
mm,
And she said, "Well, what do you want to do? Just go back to teaching?" And I said, "I guess." But then she said, "Have you ever thought about coaching?" And I literally said, "What is that? I have no idea." So when I went in to look into it, I did a 2-day free event at the academy that I trained with. And it, as cliche as it sounds, but I just knew there and then that that was, I wouldn't say the next step, because at that point I didn't think I'd leave teaching to do coaching, but it
mm,
felt like that was what was starting to be missing from, I
mm,
guess, my teaching career. So then did the diploma, did some the training and the learning as well as the teaching. So quit the management job at the end of that academic year, went back down to part-time teaching, finished all my qualifications, the coaching qualifications, built up my experience, and then so that's how I kind of got into it. And the decision to move forward. So I was finding that as much as I absolutely loved teaching, it was starting to take out a lot more from me than what it was giving to me. Maybe it's the fact that I was getting older, and lots of other things I think come into play, but I was basically starting to become exhausted. Um, as with most amazing teachers, out there, I give my all to my lessons. It's
mm,
never just a case of open up page 10 and, whatever. So I was feeling drained by the end of the day, and I didn't have anything to give when I came back home to my kids, to my husband. And I didn't like that feeling. I wanted
mm,
to be alive and energized, even at the end of work. So then, and coaching allowed me to see that that would be possible.
mm.
Working from the comfort of my own home. You're not dealing with a class full of students, but it's more on a one-to-one basis. And I guess that was the main reason I wanted to
Mm.
kind of go from that path down to this path.
Okay. So there's I mean a lot there that I know a lot of the people watching or listening will resonate with, because the whole idea that we just have to give everything in a in the teaching world,
Yeah.
and if you don't, it's frowned upon. So if you're not leaving everything in the room or in that job, you're not considered to be a good,
Yeah.
let alone an outstanding teacher. And then when you've got a family and you're coming home and you've got nothing left,
Yes.
doesn't feel very fair. And I've said this analogy quite a lot of time, where a few times over the last, since I've left, so it's the last 3 years, in our little tuition world, where I felt like I was giving everything to other people. I'm a primary school teacher, to other
Mm.
people's families, other people's children, and it was my family that was missing out.
Yeah, and that's so true. But what I want to stress is that if you're, if you're born to be a teacher, if you're a great teacher, you just can't help it. You want to
Mm,
do your job right. You want to, you've got a purpose that you have to serve. That's your duty almost. You're there for a reason. And
mm,
I think that's what sets apart good teachers, outstanding teachers from just okay teachers. The okay teachers just do it because
mm,
it's a means to an end. Whereas with outstanding teachers, it's the other way around. And as much as I kept telling myself, I'm not going to stand up much, I'm not going to, I'm going to sit down more, I'm going to rest more, it just wasn't working because as soon
mm,
as I stepped into the classroom, I wanted to give. So I pretty much couldn't hold myself and was then left exhausted.
mm. Oh, you said something before we started recording around this whole wanting something more for yourself, and you not for you. You was talking outwardly for everybody. It's like people, it's okay to want more, and actually, if you are feeling exhausted, if you are, excuse me, at that point of thinking about moving on, often it's because you yourself has grown. And I really like that, because sometimes it feels like we've come to a dead end. And I know that's very much how I felt at that point. And I know other people will mirror that. Now I look back and go, no, I needed to experience that so
Yeah,
I could then grow into this new space and do something almost the same, but also in a way where I'm in control of it and I absolutely love it.
yeah.
That was the point, that I can see the reason behind it. But I know there'll be lots of people right now, either just before that stage or
Mhm.
in a similar stage to where you are now. Like, this is your second week of being it all on your own. Is that right?
So I officially launched this September. So I left
Yeah.
teaching in the summer.
Okay.
So it's just been over 3 months. But it's important, I think, just to underline what you've just said there. And what I always say is if you're feeling dissatisfied, if you're feeling if just something's off, something's not right.
Mm,
And yes, you may be in this great job. Yes, you may be earning a great salary. Yes, you may be working in a great school with a great team. Like all those boxes are ticked, but something isn't feeling right.
mm,
My advice is just to tune in and listen to that because that is not a sign of you being ungrateful or you being greedy for wanting
mm,
more. It just, the way I explain this to my clients is that, something's off. Something's not in alignment with you.
mm,
And it may have been. So I never used to be this exhausted 10 years ago because I was 10 years younger. I was doing the same job. So the fact that things were a certain way until a certain point and then they're different doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It's just
mm.
that things have changed, you have changed, and it's okay to move on and it's okay to want something different and something more and something better for yourself. Why not?
So let's dig into this, because this feeds into, like, I'd say the first proper question, which is the how. Actually, let's rewind a little bit. Who is it
Mm,
that you help? So you started this new venture in September, although you said you started before, you did a little bit
yeah.
side by side of your teaching when you was part-time. So who is your service for? Who do you support?
So I support women. And originally, just while I was finding my feet, I started off with general life coaching for women. And that could be on all sorts of topics, your health, your relationships, your
Mm,
career. And as I coached more and more women, I noticed a pattern. And that was that whatever, regardless of the topic, regardless of the goal or the vision, everything seemed to boil down to one thing. And that was generally lack of confidence.
mm,
So, if it was about career and the vision they had for themselves, it was all about, yeah, but I can't, and I don't have this, and I don't have that, and all that sort of stuff. Whatever it was, like I said, so I noticed the same language, the same words used in every sort of conversation. So, and I noticed that the clients that I enjoyed working with most were the ones that were suffering with self-doubt, were the ones that were almost stuck in self-doubt and just couldn't move past that. They couldn't see how
Mhm.
much, how capable they were, let's say. I could see it from the outside. If I'd looked at all their list of qualifications and skills and expertise and everything they've achieved to date, I could see their strengths, but they couldn't. So when I noticed that those were the sorts of clients I enjoyed working with most, I decided to go down that route. And now having niched, let's say even further, I work with female leaders and managers once again, to help them overcome self-doubt, to help them have more self-confidence, inner confidence. This is something I talk about a lot. Have more self-belief and self-courage to be to be a good leader, but also to be a compassionate leader,
Mm,
because female leaders typically working in the corporate world that's mainly masculine dominated, like the energy, they feel like they have to be a certain way to
mm,
thrive, to succeed. But it's about reminding them, no, this is how you are, this is who you are, and that's okay. And in fact, we need a little bit more of that to help balance this masculine feminine energy in the corporate world. So I would say, in a nutshell, that's it.
okay, excellent. When I was reading through your, and we chatted a couple of months ago, maybe
Mhm.
not that long ago, maybe around
Oh,
that 6, 7 weeks ago,
like
maybe.
that, yeah.
And then reading through your website, it's a really well structured page actually, where there's a lot of like, succinct information on what you offer and how you offer it.
Mhm.
And there was something there that comes up a lot. It's this word holistic, this holistic approach. So, how do you define that holistic approach or that holistic journey that you take our women leaders through?
So I'm going to start by saying I choose the holistic path because we are holistic beings. We're not just physical beings. I have a
Mm,
highly spiritual there is a highly spiritual element to my coaching, and that's purely because we are energetic beings as well as physical beings. And I chose to develop and use that method because I know that working just with your mindset, or with one specific technique, you won't, or you don't get long lasting results. So you may get, some changes, transformations, some results, but they won't be long lasting. But
mm,
when you put everything together, so when you look at what you think, so it's the whole mind, body, soul connection thing. When you look at how your body, communicates with you, and when you look
mm,
at who you are, in your core, in your essence. So that's where the spiritual element comes in. When you blend all of this together and work with individual parts, the energetic being, the physical being, the emotional being, the mental being, when you give those tools and strategies to support all those parts of you,
mm.
that's when you create long lasting change, not just instant, but short lasting, short term changes. So that's the holistic approach.
So the holistic approach is about your mind, your body, and your soul. And I think what you've got on your website is that you almost categorize how or what that looks like when people work with you. So for
Yeah.
example, a couple of things which I absolutely love was this redefining your identity. Now I know that that was something which on its own I really struggled with just before I left teaching and for quite a few months afterwards. And it was really hard to unwrap myself from my previous version where I was really happy, loved being in a school, loved being part of a positive team. And then suddenly it was all gone. And I was like,
Mm,
well, what am I then? And so
exactly.
how do we embody like something like this as important as that and then place
Yeah.
it into, or what area does that come into? Is it kind of across everything again, like
Well,
that
that would be,
approach?
who are you in your core?
Yeah.
So I like to remind my clients to try not to, as much as possible, use labels.
Hmm.
So we say, I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a father,
Mm,
sister, whatever. But who are you beyond that? What are
mm,
you beyond that you are so much more beyond all the labels, even characteristics, even traits. I might say I'm a
Yeah.
perfectionist, I'm
Yeah.
this, I'm that, but you're basically putting yourself into a box. And what I like to remind everyone is that we are so expansive. We are so much more than what our mind can perceive. So we are so much more than these labels that we attach to ourselves. Once again, that's where the spiritual element comes in and reminding you that you are essentially, you're so expansive that it would not be possible to put you in a box, which then should give you the courage to not be attached to anything. Now, I understand it makes our lives easier. If I said to you, what do you do? It's so much easier than, to say, I'm
Yeah.
a teacher, I'm a coach. But
Mm,
I've struggled with this hugely. Even when
mm,
I left teaching and people would say, what do you do? I would catch myself saying, well, uh, I would struggle and stumble. But what I'm trying to practice more now is to, when people ask me, what do you do? I try to respond with, well, I help women feel more confident rather than I'm a life coach.
mm,
Think about the thing that you're good at and think about what you're offering to the world rather than the title or the label that you
mm.
stick on yourself.
So that, and that, I know that that links into other parts of what you would work through and help people with, like for example, just changing the way that well, the language that you use, reframing.
Yeah.
I remember having a coaching session probably about a year after I left teaching, and I didn't realize, I felt I'd moved on, but I was so stuck. And somebody who I was working with, someone called Liz, who was my first coach, she asked a question. I was like, well, that was like this traumatic experience. And she was like, was it really? We experience our own
Mm,
trauma, first of all, I say that. She
yes.
said that, was it really traumatic? So she challenged me. I said, and then we worked together and started just to unpick it, work away at it, and we started just to change the language as if someone. It's similar to what you were saying just now. When I was talking about that experience, I kept using that word. So therefore I kept it at that level. And then eventually, I mean, now I can look back at it 6 years ago that it was the best thing that ever happened. And that was the journey with it. It was this traumatic thing that was keeping me stuck. And now I wouldn't be sat here chatting to you about this and helping lots of other people had it not happened. So it was one of the most amazing things to ever happen. It's completely shifted. But it's so important to reframe the way that whether it's our identity. I love the whole actually what you do rather than who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's
100%.
a big shift
A very
because
big
that, and we spoke before we started recording again, and it kind of links into um like it changes over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's okay. And that's how it's meant to be.
Mm,
We are meant to grow and evolve. We're not meant to be the same. Otherwise,
mm,
we wouldn't age. We would always stay at the same age.
mm,
And as you learn that, all the experiences, all the people that come into your life, that leave your life, every single moment adds to you. We're not the same moment by moment, let alone day by
mm,
day or year by year. And I think that's exactly how it's meant to be. And I think it's so important to understand that we are not defined by our past. So whatever may have happened, there are ways to make peace with that. Even to look back and thank, just like you said, thank it for the opportunity that it gave you, the
mm,
strength, the courage, the learning, whatever it is,
mm,
to thank it, to make peace with it, and to be able to let that go so that you can keep moving forward. So ultimately, do you want to stay stuck or do you want to keep moving forward? That's a decision. And I understand, there are, traumas with a big capital T and smaller traumas,
yeah.
but ultimately there is a way for you to work through them if you want
Mm,
to release them.
yeah. Yeah, totally agree. And there'll be a lot of people having to work through those things over time. Um, something that was new to me recently, or not new to me, but something which I experienced again, which has been new since I left teaching, was in the inner child work, which I'd
Mm.
written down as something because it's something I experienced relatively recently, where I had to go back and look at. where this kind of block for growth was coming from. And
Yeah.
I particularly had some really strong feelings about the growth of the business. And there was, yeah, it was very strange. And but then being taken backwards through time to then
Mm-hmm.
allow that to release and have a similar conversation with
Yes.
actually that was needed because, or that happened, or they acted because out of love, not because they wanted to harm you, and those
Yeah,
things. And you just and you name it perfectly. It's making peace, and you just
absolutely.
feel, and it's hard. I find that stuff really hard. So I'd love some words of wisdom around
Mm.
this. Like, why do we hold on to these things that don't serve us? What's the reason behind that? Is there like a evolutionary reason why?
Yeah, 100% to keep you safe. So the brain likes what's familiar.
Mm,
100%. The brain doesn't like risk, it doesn't like change. And, when you think of the brain, you might also want to think of the ego. And
mm,
the ego is often referred to as something negative. We have an
mm,
ego. We shouldn't have an ego, but actually, no, we all do. So the way I explain it is we have our ego and we have our essence. So
mm,
which is it that you choose to lean into? And the
mm,
purpose of the ego is to keep us alive, to help us survive, to help us avoid risks, and that's why we don't really like taking challenges, taking risks. And we we fear the change and sometimes choose to stay stuck because it's familiar.
and is
And
that
like,
on an unconscious level as
oh,
well?
completely,
It's a
completely.
complete,
Yeah.
yeah.
But when you become aware, so this is why self-awareness is the first step,
Mm,
which is my first pillar. The first thing that I work on is the self, because
mm,
when you are aware of yourself, which is, all your core values, who are you? What are you? What do you
mm,
stand for in the world? Like, what is your why? What is your purpose? When you really dive deep into these, that's when you become aware of everything that you are, everything that you are not, and everything that's stopping you from becoming who you possibly could become.
mm,
Becoming aware and then working on these, it's possible. Once again, we're not defined by anything that's happened in the past. It's
mm.
possible to rewire, rewrite, reframe so many things.
And some of it comes back to what, well, my mind goes back to what you were saying earlier on. I was directed to read a book, which I haven't actually got all the way through, but I hit a point where I was totally amazed, and actually on even on a scientific level, I was like, wow, why has it never really occurred to me
Yeah,
in this way before, which is about the energy and the fact that we are energy, like literally we are vibrating all the time. We have these,
yeah,
and then so therefore we have frequencies, and that's why sometimes we feel vibes from people or from certain things. And
absolutely.
I actually, I actually mean this, but it's actually in a little bit of a jokey way. Like, I do not like the bagpipes, right? Just the sound of them, they grate me. I don't like them at all. And we always go as a tradition. We go for a walk along the beachfront where I grew up. Like, I'd meet up with my parents or my nephews, my brothers, my sister. But there's always someone playing a bagpipe, and every year my parents will go, "Oh, the bagpipes here for you, Rich," as a joke. And
Yeah.
I genuinely, like, I don't like it. Like, it to a point where it makes my skin crawl. I have to get out of the way of it. And genuinely now I understand that it's just on a different
Yes.
wavelength to me. It's just
Yes.
not my thing. On the flip side of that, my sister-in-law absolutely loves them. She thinks they're magical. She says the most magical sound. I don't get it. To me, I'd rather hear someone scrape their nails down the chalkboard.
Yeah. And that's really interesting. And that's, I think, once again, this is a good point to highlight that that's okay.
Yeah.
There's certain things, even in the teaching profession, that you have to do that you just genuinely don't. I'm not talking about admin tasks.
No, no, no.
Talking about things that you just don't like, and
Yeah.
that's fine because a lot of my adult life, I'd say, I struggled with things that I think I should be doing but didn't enjoy doing.
Mm,
Even like in social settings, I wouldn't like going out in, crowded, busy, noisy
mm,
places, but I thought I should enjoy clubbing, but I didn't enjoy. So then I always try to find a fault within me. But what's wrong with me? Everybody
mm,
else is doing it. Why can't I? That's fine because that's
mm.
who you are and that's what you are, and that's completely okay.
So we put all this stuff together, right? You've got your method, and I will make sure everybody's got the link to your webpage, because as I'm talking to you, I scrolled through it before and I've looked at it a few times. there's a lot on there. And so for people to go and have a look, it would be really informative just to look at this before even booking a call with you. You take them all through. What's the typical journey for someone working with you look like? What kind of things do or achieve, I suppose, is the best
Mm.
way of wording that.
For that, I'm going to come back to what I just said, and that's making peace with who you are. Because the moment you're okay with that, that's when confidence blossoms.
Mm,
If you're okay, if you accept yourself as you are, you don't need fixing. You're not broken. Things may
mm,
have happened in the past. You may have challenges right now. That's okay. But you, as you are, it's fine. Everything's okay. So making peace with that then allows you to have the confidence to, I don't know, speak up at meetings or be more visible, online or on social media. You being okay with what you are means you don't really care about what other people might say. You don't fear that other people might criticize you or judge you because you believe that what you have to say is something that you have to say. It's almost your duty. But a typical journey, I would say, is like I said, I've got my main pillars, so the self, the mindset, and the vision. So we work through that across a 12-week journey. It's I would say, a very compassionate journey because it's hard stuff. This stuff isn't easy, for you to come face to face with
mm,
your challenges, all these beliefs and thoughts that are keeping you stuck, and to share this with someone. Now, I've got to thank my teaching experience for the success of my coaching business as well, because the main thing I always made sure was that I had a safe and supportive environment in the classroom for my students to thrive. And once again, the fact that my students were adults, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, having achieved so much already, but then having to come here and start from zero, I had to give them that space where they could explore, fail, make mistakes, be
mm,
okay with that. And I've carried exactly the same principle into my coaching sessions as well. It's a safe space for you to be as open as you wish. There is no criticism, no judgment. I'm purely here to support you, which then gives the client the opportunity to basically like unwind and just release everything, the good, the
mm,
bad, and then help them move forward.
mm. I think that if you're a business owner, what you're offering is exactly what people need. We often, I think, confuse like what we need when we get into business. We think we might need the operational stuff. And don't get me wrong, getting the operational stuff right can be a
Of
big tick
course.
off your mind, and that's really beneficial. But I think that makes up about 20-25% of what you need. If you can start taking care of your mindset and looking and aligning things in the right way,
Yeah.
that's where you start to get this accelerated growth. But also, like I think being at peace with something is worth way more than
Mm,
any monthly amount turnover, yearly turnover.
completely.
Um,
And I'll tell
yeah,
you what else is huge. It's nervous system regulation, i.e., how you feel in your body, as well
yeah,
as your mind. Now, when you're constantly stressed, when you're always on alert, when you're always active and hyper, you basically can't receive, you can't hold because your body's in stress. It's already
mm,
dealing with so much. So you won't be able to hold anything that comes into your world, let's
mm,
say. And again, this is, I have breath work sessions, I have sound baths in my programs because these, it's so, so important to have a calm nervous system because our daily lives are busy and hectic as it is, so that you can then, have the capacity to
yeah.
hold the vision of the business that you want to have.
There's so much around this which I'd love to get into at a deeper level because this is something I helped someone with last year. It was a 15. Well, I met him when he just before his 15th birthday, and mama pulled this lad out of school because he just was not coping.
Mm.
And when I met mum, she was like, look, he just needs his nervous system to recover. Like, and she was chatting to the right person because this is something which I'm a huge believer in. Like, because if you've been on hyper alert for a number of years, it's going to take a little while for
Oh
you
yeah.
to just recover. And what this lad's now achieving, he's turned 16, is just unbelievable because he was allowed time and space to recuperate, reset,
Yeah.
find whatever it is he needed to find again. But most importantly, his nervous system actually
Yeah.
had time to recover. He's now
Yeah.
absolutely flying.
Amazing. And if you think about it, when you're under stress, and again, going back to the way we're programmed, let's say,
Mm,
the stress we define these days is it's the same hormones that you would get if you were chased by a tiger.
yeah.
So ultimately, your body does feel like it's under attack. So then,
Mm,
of course, it's not going to be able to concentrate on
mm,
evolving and growing and becoming bigger and better. First, it needs to stay alive.
mm,
So ensuring that that's in place first, and especially with the younger generation, since COVID and all that sort of stuff. But
mm,
I think everybody, and look, people think, you need to go on like a 10-day retreat and things like that. That's not the case. In
mm,
between sessions, throughout the day, all I do is just stop for 5 minutes,
mm,
close my eyes, take a few deep breaths. It's like I express them as ways of like calibrating.
mm,
Like you just recalibrate, you come back into alignment, whatever that is for
mm,
you. I go on for a 30-minute walk, whatever it is that
mm,
helps you just feel calm. And that
mm,
might be just listening to some music, cooking some dinner,
mm.
dancing. It's not sitting in a meditation for 2 hours. That's
Yeah.
not the only way.
Yeah. I definitely like to dig into that a bit more another time, without a doubt, because I
Mhm.
think mo most most of us have been working in this high stress, high workload, high pressure environment for such a long time. It's actually quite hard to let go of,
Yeah,
and we don't always know how to do those things we
yeah,
don't know how to do those things
yeah,
you're talking
yeah,
about. And unless someone says, you know what, have you tried doing this? Or is this
yeah.
going to work for you? Or try a few things and feedback, and let's see what it's going to be. For
Yeah.
the lad I was working with, it was fishing.
Oh, wow,
He
amazing.
absolutely loved fishing,
That's
yeah.
it.
And I don't like fishing, but I had to meet him fishing once a week, which was fine. It was lovely spending time with him, and I
Yeah,
had to touch like scaly fish every week. But other than that, it was great. And by the time we did that for about 6 months before we did any tuition. And then he
yeah.
started coming to tuition, and now he's gone to agricultural college. He's moved out of home
Wow,
in the space of
amazing.
18 months. When you get things like this right, what you can achieve beyond that is there's no measure. There's no
No,
measure for it.
definitely not. And I like what you said there because we've been so it's been the norm, to be on this high alert, busy environment that doing things like this at first, of course, it will feel uncomfortable. It will feel
Mm,
strange. It will feel weird.
mm,
But I just want to remind people that that's how things were back in the
mm.
days. That's how we're meant to live. We
Yeah.
are meant to live in a of course there's always going to be stress. I'm not saying we should all move out into the woods, but we are meant to live in a regulated way. And the new research is all about co-regulation, which is
Mm,
why I particularly like working with female leaders, because then they can help their team also regulate as well.
mm. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that. And I don't want to demonize stress, because there is parts of stress that's really helpful
Yeah, for
to us.
sure,
Again,
for sure.
it's just that at that chronic level
Yeah,
that we all work. I say we all work at. I'm sure not everybody works at that level. It just seems to be more prevalent today.
yeah.
Uh, that when we're moving away from something and into something new, or potentially into something new, we have a tendency to just replace it again, because I think you started off the session, this podcast, with that your brain likes familiarity, so it just
Absolutely.
falls straight back into it.
Yeah.
And then that leads me on to another part, which we'll definitely say for next time. But because it's there, it was about boundaries. And
Hmm.
and what I love about what you've created is, as we start talking about these things, it just naturally fits into
Hmm.
how you work. All of these different areas that we all need to get better at and understand and start to work on. I can see, if someone was working with you, how they would start, and
Hmm.
then where it might possibly take them, depending on their own needs.
Yeah.
So there's boundaries, there's the nervous system regulation, and there was also a bit in your website about people finding their purpose and their why, which is a huge thing,
Yeah.
which we talk about in our group, and in the course or any workshops that I run. I feel like if you miss that bit out,
Yeah.
don't see a reason why you would actually act on anything.
Exactly. Because that's, again, that's what defines who you are. That's what sets you and me apart from each other. And I believe that we are all gifted in a unique way, whatever that is.
Mm,
And if you struggle to identify what that is, I always say, what comes easily to you? What comes
mm,
naturally to you? What is it that you can do so easily and do so well that you
mm,
get frustrated when other people can't do it?
mm,
And that's what your gift is. And your, I guess your why, your purpose maybe also is connected to that gift. Maybe, maybe the gift is communicating with people. So then it's
mm,
helping them realize certain things, whatever that might be. But it's quite a big thing now, identify your why and know your
mm,
purpose and do, follow your passion and all that kind of thing. But that is the core, that
mm,
because that defines whether you're on an aligned path
mm,
or not. And when
mm,
you're not on an aligned path, it's not going to be an enjoyable journey. No
mm.
matter how much you're making,
Yeah,
whoever
yeah,
you're surrounded
yeah,
by, you're not going to enjoy the ride.
yeah. Totally. You can take money off the table when you're talking about stuff like
Yeah,
this, can't you? Completely
yeah,
just disregard it.
yeah,
I think a lot of us in teaching as well automatically disregard the money because most of us wouldn't have gone into teaching for the money in the
yeah,
first place. And I
exactly.
think that's always a positive. But at the same time, the money that we earn or did earn in the past was also part of the trap.
Yeah,
And so it's like stepping away from, okay, what if
yeah,
what I'm about to do next is going to work?
yeah,
And then if it is aligned,
yeah,
great. But I know that I will speak for a lot of people when I say that the way we're working in school at the moment, whether it's primary, secondary, occasionally higher ed, further ed, there's not a lot of alignment at the moment
mm,
across the board. It's very much seems we've got pushing and pull between whether it's government and what it's like on the boots on the ground type level. And there's a definitely a disparity between the way we want to work and the way we're being forced to work. So that I know that's a lot of people feel that way. So if you then, and that's the familiar thing, and then we pick that up and take that with us into whatever venture we're going to next. That's why working with someone like yourself or finding like-minded people who can help you along the way is going to really help. And that's the co-regulation where people can support
absolutely.
each other.
And
Sinem,
working on all this, it also gives you the courage. It gives you the courage to do the thing that you want to do, even though you don't have any evidence that it may or may not work out. And
yeah,
the courage comes from the self-belief
mm,
that you have what it takes to make this thing work.
yeah,
And that then keeps you going, even when things don't work out instantly, even when you're not making any money from it. But
mm,
you've got the belief that you are capable
yeah,
and that, so I came across this phrase, and it's your desires are desiring you. So
mm,
if there's something planted in your heart, it's there for a reason.
mm,
But which is why, again, my method is holistic. It's when all these things come together, that's when true change can happen.
mm.
Because otherwise, it's
Amazing.
so easy just to stumble at the first block and give up.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where a lot of people reach out to me for
Mm.
tuition. They're like, I'm stuck. And it's like,
Yeah.
you're not stuck because of this, and this. You're actually stuck because we're getting in our own way, or there's some
Yes.
other reason or some other block. So I totally get that. So then, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. There are a lot of unanswered questions, so we'll definitely do a part two in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the boundaries, going a bit deeper into the nervous system. There was visualization as well,
Hmm.
which is such a big topic. I'd love to get into that a little bit more with you and to share your expertise. If you're up for doing that in the future,
Absolutely. I would love to come back and speak more.
great. Perfect. Thank you so much. Oh, I will add that I'll make sure we've got all the links. So if you are interested in finding out more about what Sinem offers, we have all the links really easy for you to use, and we'll make sure we've got contact details and things as well. Thank you,
Amazing.
Sinem. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.